week of all over the world this week is celebrated in different ways, and it's a really great time to tune into those energies that have been around since the ancient times around tuning into our intuition, not only our intuition, but what comes through when we tune into our intuition and we make space in our lives for reflection and make space in our lives for quiet. So this is a big week for making space in your life for quiet. And if you have children, unfortunately, it's also a time when we load them up with sugar, or, try not to maybe, but it ends up happening and makes maybe a little bit harder to get that integration time if you are a parent. If you're not a parent, there might be a lot of parties happening. That's great. It's a good time to socialize as long as you balance that out with some time to yourself, and really making extra time for sleep and for quiet and for turning off the computers and electronics, because this is the time where things are coming through. I don't know about you guys, but my dreams have been crazy lately, and some of the same people have been in my dreams, and I'm like, okay, I'm definitely working through some archetypal energies that are coming through. So it's a really great time this week to make sure that you are setting that time for integration, because what tends to happen is when we don't set that time, then we often get sick. And so a lot of people are getting sick as well, and that's also just the universe saying, take it easy, slow down a little bit, sleep a little bit more than you have been. So what's happening this week? So let's talk a little bit about the astrology, and then I'm going to move into the holidays as well. So in astrology land, if you get my workbooks, if you're on my newsletter, which if you're not, you should get on there. But if you're on there, then you got a workbook. And if you want to open that workbook up and check it out, it talks about Chiron squaring Saturn. And this is going to be on November 2nd. This is the third time that this has happened in the last year. So the first time was December 28th. The second time was April 30th. And this will be the final time. And if you wanted to look back and see what was happening for you, I did this and I'm like, whoa, okay, some big things were happening and shifting and changing in my life. So December 28th, April 30th, and then November 2nd. This is the final one. So it's like when we get that 3, that's really a time, the first one probably was the most challenging, typically it is. And then the second one, we get more integration, a little bit more direction. And then this third one is really the integration. Why it's so huge to take that integration time is because this is the final one for a time. There will be more. But what the archetype of Saturn is the great father, the great teacher, the stern disciplinary, the hard lessons. And when that archetype squares, which is challenging, it's kind of creating a little bit of a conflict, and inner conflict with the archetype. Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer, and it's we're only able to share with this world as much as we know. And so when we know pain, when we know suffering, when we know anguish, and we make our way through that, then we're able to share those gifts with others. And honestly, we don't ever make it all the way through. Chiron stays with us through our life, and we all have Chiron in our chart, and it does depend what house it's in for you. For me personally, it's in my house of work. So it's here's what I have to share with you because of my wounding around this. So it's a great time to just look and see where maybe Chiron is for you, but also just looking at the lessons that are coming through in terms of your own experience. It's not necessarily all woundedness. So Chiron is the wounded healer, and he's an amazing healer. He's able to heal everyone. Sometimes it excludes himself. Typically it does. So it's really the point in your chart where you offer your gifts to others, and you can really help other people grow. And so with that being said, you have the strengths there to help others, and to maybe this week is a week where you're going to get some insight into more of what you have to share in the world, right? More with what you have to contribute. But Saturn is also restrictive, and so sometimes those lessons are hard and painful, and so some of your wounding might come up around, being seen or being valued or being being in relationship, if it's in your 7th house, like just a lot of wounding might come up, but also a lot of healing might come up in a lot of direction. So just taking that space for integration is really the best thing to do. And this is common. It's something that I say a lot, but it's because in our culture, we don't value it. And we also don't value the season that we're in. And the season that we're in is all about letting go. It's about death. It's about surrender. And so we don't value that because that's a feminine principle. That's a feminine lesson. And so in our culture, we're learning, we're slowly getting there, but in our culture, typically we don't tend to value that feminine principle of letting go, of death, of surrender, of coming into a place where you don't know what's going to come next. And this is really where we're going into. So we often talk about the Scorpio season as being the unseen, the dream time. And so this is a time where you are meant to dream more, you are meant to meditate more, you are meant to sleep a little bit longer. And so do not feel bad for resting more, right? That's actually valued at this time. And then also the other astrological things that are happening this week. And I do have children home. Shoot. They were playing so nicely. Look, it's sunny outside, but I do hear them. They might come storming in here. This is going to be exciting. So they're off school for the next 3 days. It's very great timing for me. Just kidding. I'm totally kidding. It's not. So the sun is conjunct Jupiter still. And so what's interesting is that Jupiter had an opposition with Uranus, and that created a lot of awakening and expansion around where we want change and where we're growing into. And now, as the sun and Jupiter are kind of traveling along through Scorpio and, finding like, okay, this integration, the sun is really bringing the light to like this transformation that's happening within us all, right? And then Venus is coming along, and now Venus is opposing Uranus. So Uranus is just like, bam, because it's in Aries, and it's just fire. It's like lightning speed, just like blowing it up. And what it's blowing up, Venus, this is such a Venetian cycle that we're in. The new moon was in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. The full moon will be in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. It's kind of, typically we would have a new moon in Scorpio and a full moon in Taurus. But this time it's a little bit different. Things have gotten a little bit, as per usual in astrology, things kind of change up a little bit to give us a different flavor. And this flavor is all about Venus. And what is Venus the archetype of? Venus is the archetype of how we give and receive love, but not only love, energy, resources, our time. So it's really like value. And so with Venus being opposing Uranus, it's really awakening us to our own value, where we haven't been valuing ourselves, where we've maybe been overgiving or overtaking, right? And so hopefully that's settling in for some people out there in the world. And I'm sure, we all have that to some degree, but definitely for those of us that have been overgiving, feeling like we're not worthy enough to receive as much as we give, it's really awakening in us like this whole new aspect of, wait a minute, maybe I've been doing things a little bit off. So this is the time where we might just recognize that Libra, so Venus is still in Libra, and that's all about the balance, finding that inner balance and finding the balance of give and take. And then so Uranus is just awakening us to where we have to find that balance. So this is a great time to write, to journal, to take inventory. So this week again is all about integration and taking the space for yourself. And if you can't, make it happen. Like, make it happen somehow. If you have just a book solid week, you're going to have to find time for yourself, or else the universe is going to provide it for you. So definitely take an hour. Like, I'm not talking about a whole day even. Just take an hour for yourself. Okay, then we have a few other things happening. We have Neptune is going to be trining this full moon that's going to be happening next week, and that's already kind of starting or it's going to be trining the sun. I hope I said that. And it's going to be just providing, like, we're in a Pisces moon right now today, and into, I think, the beginning of tomorrow. And this is really giving it this dreamy, spiritual flavor to this week. And that makes sense because, as I'm going to talk about, the holidays this week. This is one of my favorite holiday weeks, and a lot of people think about Halloween as like gore and darkness, and I know a lot of my like spiritual friends are like, do not like Halloween, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're missing out on like, there's so much more to Halloween than the commercial, the consumer, the surface of Halloween. So the history of Halloween has been around, it's been around forever in all different cultures. So there's Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Day, which, some of these things, like All Saints Day really was taken from the original Celtic, I can never say the name, somebody's going to help me. I can spell it, but I can't say it. But I should know it because I'm Irish. But let me see. How do you pronounce that? Okay. Well, if you guys know how to pronounce it, Samhain. Pronunciation. Samhain? Samhain. Okay, now I know. See, you just got to Google it. So a lot of people believe that, the patriarchy came in and was like, we're going to transform this into All Saints Day. And also with Dia de los Muertos, that also the same thing. And really what this is valuing the feminine, valuing the small death. We're not talking big death. We're talking small death. When the crops die, when the plants die, when the leaves fall, there is value. And one of the main things about this week is really being okay with letting go and cleansing, but also connecting. And so, we often say this is a time to connect in with those who have passed, connect in with your spirit guides, because the veil is thinned. And then this is also the time where in a lot of cultures they talk about hibernation or like the bear medicine. And, bear medicine has been around forever, and that is a feminine medicine. That is a feminine archetype, and it's really of the hibernation, going within the cave. A lot of people speak to, this kind of, the cave is the hypothetical portal into other dimensions, into your own intuition. And so this is the time to go as a bear into your cave, and basically as the darkness comes, we just become more internal. And so the whole idea of Halloween was All Hallows Eve, was that because it is more internal, we also do have to balance that a little bit with socialization. We really need that because we can go too deep within and get a little lost within. And so the whole idea with Halloween, going around, the village and collecting things. So you'd go door to door, the children would dress up, and it was this idea that, you'd collect and they do like a group potluck. And then they'd also do an offering. And so some people believe that the whole idea of going door to door was also like they'd set out at their door things for their ancestors. And we know in Day of the Dead celebration, a lot of people actually go to the cemeteries and provide out an offering to their ancestors and stay there and celebrate and spend time there. So it's about connection. It's about reaching out when you need to. And it's also about taking that space and time when you need it. So because if you're just socializing, if you're just out there partying, you're not taking the time to do that connection, to do that meditation, to tap into what's available to you. And if you're just doing all that, right, you can get a little lost and it cannot be so good. So it's just about that balance. This week is a lot about, celebration, but also reflection. And so the full moon will be on Saturday, on November 4th. But building up to that, this week is a pretty big week for just all those things that I talked about. So making sure you take time and space for that. I will probably be talking about the full moon again, but it is interesting because this is really a time period where the Taurus is feminine, and we're really coming into more of our own value as people who, male or female, who carry the feminine. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that in other cultures, they call this full moon that we'll be building to the little spirit moon, which I think is lovely. And so it's really just like Taurus is all about the earth and connection and resources and just like the physical, what's really physical and right in front of us. But then there's also this influence from Neptune and from Venus and all these other things that are providing us this this connection to spirit. So it is the 12th full moon of the year, and then we'll be coming, so it's almost the last full moon of the year, and then we'll be coming to the 13th moon. So this is really a time for reflection, spiritual dreaming up what we want moving forward in our lives and where we want to see ourselves valued. And first we have to do that for ourselves. So where this week you're going to kind of maybe do some journaling or preparation around where you are going to value yourself more. And as a carrier of your ancestors' line, and they're all supporting you. And so what can you do to be bigger in this time? What can you do to shine your light more during this time of darkness so that you can represent, got to represent those ancestors. So I hope you guys are doing well. If you have any questions about this week, you can post them in the comments. And I hope you all just take some time and space to reflect. If you have someone that has some people, lots of people, animals, pets, friends that have passed on, this is a great week to honor them. You can make a little altar, you can put out their pictures, light a candle. This is a really great week to honor those that have passed, and then to also just make an offering to the earth as well. So if you have any inspiration on how to do that, I would love to hear about that in the comments. Okay, take care.